We're going to be looking at the memorial for Chief Festus Okotie Eboh. 50 years after he was killed in one of Nigeria's bloodiest military coups, his family, the Okotie Eboh family, remembered the man who is still hailed as one of the country's finest leaders. On January 15th, the 50th anniversary of his death, a colloquium was organized by the family, and it was held at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. A book was also launched, and the book is titled Chief F.S. Okotie Eboh, His Time and Space. The focus of the day was the essence of the man, his politics, and his modest achievements early in his life before he was killed at the young age of 54. We have the former presidential spokesman, Mr. Akin Oshuntoku, with us this morning to look at this particular subject. Mr. Oshuntoku, good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you again.
Yes, I knew you would say that.
Where did you see him before?
Yeah.
Well, the last time he was here, which is...
That was quite a while.
Exactly.
Because the mountain was going to Muhammad.
Okay.
In the past 2 appearances, Chinese came to my house.
Okay.
Now, the event to celebrate his time and space was held yesterday. What was it like?
I don't know you were there, so I think it was a very grand ceremony. Personally, I was happy that it showed Nigerians are coming to terms, with a rather problematic history. I look at the array of people who came there, the dignitaries, and before, I don't know that if you had that occasion 10, 20 years ago, I don't think you get that kind of comprehensive mix of personalities who attended it. Chief Festus Okotie Eboh is, many knew him, remembered him as just a leading politician who was shot during the first military coup. But they really didn't know a lot about his life, what distinguished him. In itself, such a flamboyant person, holding that portfolio that he did. And he did it so competently. Many people may be pleasantly surprised because he was known for his flamboyance, the long the apparel he was wearing. And a number of achievements that he had in office. And was articulate, it was a side of him that many people didn't, I myself didn't know. I mean, that he had that kind of illustrious professional life. And of course, he was rich before he came into politics, or before he became minister. He was financing the party, according to the testimony of Chief Richard Akinjide, that he was richer than the party and he was even financing, unlike what we have now. He's also a victim. Well, he's a double victim of Nigeria's history. First, in that being cut down, at that age in public service. Second was that, for whatever reason, Nigeria has turned a blind eye to an official version or authoritative version of Nigeria's history. It is not in our education curricula, for instance. So we are not taught Nigeria's history. That's why I refer to him as being a double victim. He was murdered. And then secondly, you could not appreciate his role, along with those other founding fathers who did so well. You are unable to appreciate his what he did, what he stood for. So in that sense, I see the occasion as a good beginning, to begin to appreciate, know, and evaluate those, the founding fathers who are victims of crises, chaos, and things like that,
Let me just highlight a couple of things here, which many of us didn't know. I mean, especially those of us that were not at that event yesterday. He introduced the pay-as-you-earn taxing system. He also pushed for passed a bill They ensured Nigeria had her own currency, and then the establishment of the central bank. Yes, he was murdered, but what lessons from the things he was able to do within that short period in Parliament, and then his demise, what lessons can we draw from this man and his life?
Yeah, that is what I'm saying, that well, it poses a problem for Nigeria. It's life and death poses a problem, a unique problem. And that is coming to terms with Nigeria's history. As I tell you, you will not find any Nigeria history authoritatively produced, documented, in which our history, not just those that were concerned with, but even the history of Nigeria, maybe from 1914 up till now. Now, there's a problem about that, but especially 1966, from 1966 to 1970, was probably the most, definitely the most crisis-ridden, the most conflictual aspect of our history. I think part of the problem is that we are not going to find a consensus in, attributing values. While the coup makers of 1956 96 heroes of villains, I'm sure that Nigerians are not agreed. While the victims heroes of villains, you are going to have this diverse opinion. This is a problem we have to contend with. We are ill at ease, with the history of the country. But coming back to Chief F.S. Okotie Eboh, is that we were able to see the man behind the mask. Maybe my father was a politician, so I knew him, I knew a bit of him. He was killed in 1915, flamboyant and so on. But that aspect of him, I mean, somebody who was responsible for the conception of so many vital institutions of Nigeria, and his
Mint, the central bank,
even the ADB, African Development Bank, I was pleasantly surprised, at many of the things that that he achieved, and that I was there, and even look at the budget. As somebody, Pat, who told me, made the point that he has stopped paying attention to the Nigeria's budget statement since 20 years ago. And that is because he just sees it as something PR. And then people now brought out the budgets that were prepared or presented by Okotie Eboh in the 7 years that he was finance minister. And you could see the class in it, the competence. It was something when he read in language, in the way it was implemented, nobody allocated any money anywhere if the money was not there to be spent. Mm-hmm. So these are these are things that we could learn from him as a man, as a public figure, and again as one of those icons, at the most problematic moment in Nigeria's history. Yeah.
Mr. Shotokun, one thing that struck me yesterday was the testimonies by Mr. Amechi and Dan Masanin about the politics of those days and how you would be rude to the leader of another party and you would be dragged to that leader to apologize, and you would be threatened. We can throw you out of the party for this kind of behavior. Our party is not a party of thugs. Well, that, I think, is something we can learn from.
Yeah. You see, we have a lot to do in the journey of discovery about Nigeria itself.